an altitude of 4,500 meters. About 13 terrorists had entered the Indian side on the 25th. They were moving from the Bandipora area to the Kangan area. These terrorists were tracked by the army. All the 13 terrorists were killed in that encounter, which went on for 6 days. This encounter finally came to an end on the 1st of October. So far, bodies of 11 terrorists have been recovered and a search is on for the bodies of the remaining 2.
We knew their numbers exactly. It was a small party of these commandos consisting of barely 10 to 12 men who contained and fixed the terrorists to that location. 13 of the terrorists were fixed to that location for the entire night. The continuous firefight took place from 27th almost. It ended on 1st of October.
And well, for more details, let's go across now to our correspondent Tariq Mir. Tariq, an encounter that rages on for almost 6 days, but of course ending in success. Give us more details.
Well, this was by far one of the most longest encounters that had taken place in recent years between the army and the militants. Now on between 23 and 24th of the September, army got this information about some militants moving from Bandipora to the Kangan area on this ridge between these two places. Now this ridge falls and sits at an altitude of 4,500 meters. It was not possible for the army to really send in Jawans there. They could not trek to that place because it's quite an inhospitable terrain. So what they decided was to press in the chopper and drop the paratroopers on 25th night. They in fact dropped some of the paratroopers there on the ridge line, and the encounter ensued between those militants and the army Jawans. Initially we were told that 4 militants had been killed. Then of course 2 days later army said that more 3 had been killed, and then we thought, many people of course, there were indications from the army that this encounter might have come to an end. But of course while the army was mopping up this area, they came across some more fire from some militants who were hiding in some of the caves that really are scattered around this ridge line, which of course, as I said, sits on an altitude of 4,500 meters. And of course this more shootout took place, and eventually this death toll reached around 13 militants. Now the bodies of 11 militants have been recovered so far. 2 more militants are somewhere in the debris. Now they were literally hiding themselves in a cave, and that had been there's some heavy ammunition that was used by the army to really to destroy that cave, and those 2 militants are supposed to be buried under that debris. So 13 militants have been killed in this operation that went on for almost 6 days. And as far as the army casualties, well, we were told initially that 1 army Jawan had been killed, but there's no much clarity as to how many Jawans had been killed in this. But initially we were told that 1 Jawan had died. This brings to an end this one of the longest ever encounters that had taken place in the recent times between the army and of course the militants.
Right, Tariq, also what is the army saying about this? Of course this comes as a huge success for them, 13 militants being killed in an encounter that goes on for 6 days.
Well, we did speak to some of the army officers who had knowledge about the logistics and of course the strategy of this operation to take out these militants. They said that it's not a fresh group of militants who had infiltrated from the line of control. They had been in the valley for some time, and for the present they were moving from Bandipora and probably going to South Kashmir, but they were stopped between these 2 places, Bandipora and Kangan, on this ridge which is at an altitude of 4,500 meters. Well, this was a unique kind of operation. We don't hear many times here in the valley that army really encounters this kind of a group of militants on a ridge line which sits at an altitude of 4,500 meters. So they needed some people who had expertise in these kind of operations. So the paratroopers were dropped from the air through the choppers, and they eventually took on these militants who were hiding in those caves there.
Right, Tariq, certainly a unique operation being carried out there, but can you give us some details about what tip-off exactly the army was working on?
Well, as I said, on 23rd and 24th, between 23rd and 24th, Army had this information about some militants moving in this area. It wasn't the area in the plains as the Army usually encounters these militants. They got this information from some shepherds there who are out with their herd in that area, and it's the tracks are only known by these people who are referred to as, in the local parlance, as the Bakarwals, and they initially tipped off the Army, as Army sources tell us, and later, of course, it was not possible for the Army to send Jawans up to this high altitude, so eventually the paratroopers had to be dropped from the air, and they really took care of these 13 militants, and the reports we're getting is that most of these militants belong to Lashkar-e-Taiba. This is what the Army officials are telling us now, but the final identity of these militants is not known. It will take some more time before that is shared with the press here.
Right, our correspondent Tariq Mir there joining us with details of that historic encounter that's raged on for 6 days rather, and has seen the end of 13 militants. Meanwhile, 24 hours after Pakistan promised India that it will ensure border stability and agreed to clamp down on terror, comes a new proof